everybody, and welcome back to the Timira Theory. The Timira Theory is a podcast that celebrates the accomplishments and victories of people from all walks of life, hosted by Timira and Hudson. Today, we have a new special guest here, and you can introduce yourself if you'd like.
Oh, okay. I'm Major General John Andonie, and I am the Deputy Director for the Army National Guard.
Okay, thank you so much. So, we have quite a bit of questions here. So, the first question for you is, what branch of the military are you in, and when did you enlist?
So I currently serve in the United States Army, and I did not enlist. I was accepted into the United States Military Academy, more affectionately known as West Point, in 1985. So I started there in July of 1985.
Okay, and what's your position now?
Uh, so currently, like I said earlier, I am the Deputy Director for the Army National Guard. Basically, me and my boss is the Director of the Army National Guard, we basically oversee the resources, the policies, and the regulations for 39% of the United States Army, which is the National Guard, which is actually out amongst all the 54 states and territories of the United States. We're a large organization. We have about 325,000 men and women serving in the Army National Guard today.
Wow, that's a lot. So, why did you choose to join the Army?
Well, that's a great question. I I always go back to when I was a kid. I was actually in first grade. My family was living in Denver, Colorado, and I'll never forget. My father took me on a day trip to the Air Force Academy, which was down in Colorado Springs. And I still remember that day as if it was yesterday. And I remember seeing the cadets marching on the parade ground. I remember seeing the cadet chapel, and all of those memories stuck in my head. And I think I knew from back then that I really wanted to be part of the military. So I got involved in junior ROTC, Air Force junior ROTC as a high school student. And I really wanted to be in the military. I don't know how else to explain it. My father had a brief stint. He was born in Honduras, and he had a brief stint in the Honduran Army as a lieutenant. And so I think his experience combined with what I just told you about really motivated me to want to join the military. So I didn't want to join the Army initially. I just wanted to join the military. And I did everything I could in high school. I joined the Marine Corps Delayed Entry Program. I applied to every academy. I applied for ROTC scholarships, and ultimately I was accepted by West Point, and that's what really got me into the Army.
That's amazing. So,
Thanks.
this is kind of about like your experience. So, what was the basic training like for you?
Basic training was hard for me. I had never been pushed that hard in my life. And I remember, so I was raised in California. After I mentioned I was in Denver, Colorado as a kid, but then we moved to California where I was raised. And I went from California, and then when I was accepted to West Point, I went to New York for basic training. So for me, it was a complete change in scenery, a complete change in lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
My whole world was turned upside down, and so basic training was rough for me. Apart from just the experience of joining something I had never been part of, I was far away from my family, and so I was a little nervous. I had times when I wasn't too sure, but basic training really more than anything just helped build my confidence and and I did things I didn't think I could do. So I found that as I succeeded in every little challenge, it just helped me become better overall as a person, and I became stronger. I got physically stronger, and learned a lot of things that I wouldn't have ever learned anywhere else. So it was a good experience, but it was very scary at first, and I did have my moments of weakness where I wanted to go home. I won't lie to anyone. There were a few times I wanted to go home.
So, were there any things like the people that you met that made those feelings like better for you about basic training and like adjusting to everything?
Yeah, Samir, I think the people that you're talking about were my classmates, the people to the left and to the right of me. Yeah. And I think you'll find that if you talk to most soldiers or anyone who served in the military, that your friends, the ones that are around you, are the ones that mean the most to you. Because at the end of the day, that shared experience, right, where you're all going through the same thing, that same challenge, it brings people together, binds you. And so the most important people I had were my classmates who kept cheering me on. And when they were down, I cheered them on. And that teamwork just kind of resonated and built lifelong friendships. I mean, to this day, I still stay in touch with my classmates that I knew long ago in basic training. And I think that common adversity that you all face is what keeps you together as a team. And they become the most important people.
That's amazing. That's really sweet. So
Thanks.
were you ever deployed overseas, and if you were, how long?
So yes, I was deployed. My first deployment was to Honduras for a training exercise. That was back in 1993. It was a rather short deployment. The biggest deployment I ever had was in 2004, and that was to a combat theater, and that was to Iraq. And I was actually mobilized for 19 months.
Wow.
And served in Iraq, directly in Iraq. I served in Iraq for about 8 months.
Wow. Yeah. Do you enjoy being deployed and seeing new places?
Well, deployment's hard on families. It's hard on individuals. It's hard on families. It's never easy. And yes, you get to see different parts of the world that you wouldn't see normally, but you get to see them under very, very challenging circumstances. Deployments can be hard, but they can also be times for growth. And so I found that in the course of the deployment, I grew personally, right? Because it's tough to face these challenges, but when you go through them, you've heard the old adage, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And a lot of that's true in deployments. All that adversity that you go through helps make you a stronger person. You can deal with stress much better. You can deal with challenging situations much better. I think deployment can be a time for growth, personal growth. Not just for me, but also for families, too, because a lot of people tend to forget, a lot of people who are not in the military tend to forget that when you deploy, it's not just you that goes, but your family also has to endure that hardship, too, the ones that stay back. And so it was a time for growth for my family, enduring this challenge, right, being apart for so long, finding ways to stay in touch and stay connected. That was part of the growth experience as well through deployment. And I went back to basic training, right? And my story with friendships. The same things happen on deployments. When you go through a situation like that together, you build these bonds and ties with friends that just are amazing. Because at the end of the day, when you're on a deployment, your friends are the ones that are going to keep you focused and moving forward. And that teamwork that we built for the deployment still goes on today. So much so that next year we're talking about our 20th reunion. And this is the group I deployed with. So we're going to have our 20th reunion next year. We're all planning it, and we're all excited about it because it's a chance for each of us to see each other again. You know, we hadn't seen each other since 2005 when I came back from deployment. So just a chance to celebrate our 20th reunion is part of that friendship that was forged back in the days when we deployed. So.
And you feel like these people are your family too?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I always I always tell people that the Army's my second family. My wife knows it too. Although she's as much as part of that family as I am. You know, you really share so much together. You in terms of your experiences and you're together all the time. I mean, that's what makes the Army great. I think military service in general is these common bonds that you develop with people, and people do become your family in many ways. I like that analogy that you mentioned, family. You really do become your family.
Yeah, I understand that. So, so bringing back to the questions, what wars or like battles have you fought in?
Well, that's a hard question to answer because you know, when you're deployed, especially in a combat theater, it's a continuum. There's events that happen every day. A lot of those events you see in your news. You know, when you see the evening news, you might hear about an event that went on overseas. But these events happen throughout the time that you're on a deployment. So it's hard to say what battle I was involved in. It was more of a series of events throughout the course of the time I was deployed. So my job in Iraq, I was part of what's called a Division Tactical Operations Center. So we had a cell of about 60 people, and that cell was acted like a 911 center. I don't know how else to explain it other than like, say like your local community, you have a 911 center, you call there when you need help.
Yeah.
We essentially had the same thing. We had this center that anyone within our area could call for help, and when we got a call, we had to respond with whatever we could. Right. So in this case, help is not necessarily sending the police. Since we're in a combat theater, it had to do with maybe sending helicopter support or sending additional troops to assist with a particular situation. Or sending supplies to a particular area. So it had a multitude of different responses. But that's essentially what I did. Is I was basically in charge of this operations center that would basically help provide assistance in any part where needed. But just understand that assistance was combat related, right? So in many cases, it might be delivering fires, artillery fires, or other munitions to suppress enemy personnel that were affecting our operations, that kind of stuff. So it was just a different way of responding to an emergency, obviously.
So there's only 2 more questions for the section of general questions. So how many years have you been doing this? Like, been interested? I know you said you've been interested since you were a child, but like also how long have you been interested, and how long have you been a part of the Army and the military?
So technically I've been part of the military since I went to the academy in 1985. So if you include that, then I've been part of the Army for about 38 years of my life. So
that's a long time.
So very long time. Yes. Very long time.
And so how did your experience compare to what you thought it would? Like reality, expectations versus reality?
Um, I think what I pictured the military to be was exactly what I thought it would be. Is all the things that you see on TV, the fun things like riding in an M1 tank or riding in a helicopter. I got a chance to do all that stuff, so that's all kind of neat stuff that I did. Is so all that stuff was true to form. But the things I didn't know about the Army, that I learned over time was, like, I think one of the biggest examples is leadership. The Army taught me to be a leader. I did things in high school. I was the student council president, I think I was not the president, but I was the elections commissioner for the student council. I was president of my own club in high school. So I had experiences in leadership in high school, but it wasn't the leadership that the Army teaches you. How to motivate people, how to get the maximum performance out of people, how to help people reach their full potential, how to organize a team, how to direct people to accomplish a task, a very challenging task or mission. All of those things I learned in the Army, and that's the one thing I didn't expect. I didn't know about that piece. I was more, when I was a kid, I was all focused on the fun things. But then I learned all of the professional aspects of being in the Army, and leadership was a big part of the Army that I wasn't aware of, that I learned about, that has truly broadened me and made me, I think, a better person.
That's what I love to hear, that your career or the things you've been through have made you a better person. So.
Oh, I always tell people the Army doesn't owe me anything. I owe the Army everything. Everything I am today, I owe to my experiences in Army.
That's good. So I know that you were there when 9/11 happened, like you were called, right?
Yep.
So it was told to me that you were called when that happened. So I just have two questions about that. What were your thoughts during the attack? Like, what did you think was happening, or, what was going through your head when 9/11 happened?
No, that's a good one. But I got to ask a question first, so real quick. How old were you during 9/11? Or were you born?
I was not born.
Okay. Don't worry. Now I know how old I really am. But no. It's a good question, Timira. So I was actually. So I am a member of the New York Army National Guard. So the New York Army National Guard was, aside from the Fire Department of New York and the Police Department of New York, the Army National Guard, the New York Army National Guard was there on the ground initially, right alongside of the FDNY and the NYPD. I was not physically in New York. I was in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas with the rest of my team. We were getting ready for deployment. And this is before deployment, actually. We were getting ready for an exercise is what we were doing. I remember trying to organize my team to do some planning. And so I sat at the table with all the materials. We were going to do some planning, and my staff is nowhere to be seen. I couldn't. They weren't in the room. So I went down the hallway to try and find it, and I found everyone huddled in the guard shack looking at a small black and white TV. I said, "What's going on?" They said, "Oh, a plane just crashed into the World Trade Center." And at first I thought, well, it's probably just an unfortunate accident. I told everyone, "Hey, look, we need to get to work. Come on, we need to go and start planning." So at first I just thought oh, well, this is just a very bad accident, right? But we need to get working again on this project, what we're here for. So I tried to drag the staff back in, and I remember as soon as I was doing that, someone yelled, "Another plane hit the towers." Mm-hmm. And at that point, you asked me about my thoughts. At that point, and I think everyone else thought the same thing, this isn't just an accident, right? This is something else. So at that point, nobody, to include myself, was doing any work. We were just all glued to the TV trying to figure out what was going on. And then, of course, the reports came in about the Pentagon, and then the plane that crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And at that point, we knew this was more than just an accident or a series of accidents. This was something else. This was something akin to an act of war. We awaited orders, and then at 5:00 that evening, we boarded buses to come back to New York. We couldn't get an airplane because the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, has shut down the skies, even to military aircraft, so we couldn't fly home. So we boarded buses. We went back to New York. We were given 12 hours to go back home, packed for an unspecified duration of time, and then we all went down to the city to help out with the effort in 9/11. So, that's kind of what happened to me in the days just after 9/11.
And when you were there helping, what did you feel? Like, what were your emotions about everything?
Well, I think everyone wanted to go down and just do what they can to help, right? That was the primary thing. Just help people get through the tragedy, help the city get... I've been involved in many disaster responses as a member of the National Guard, and I think the first thought that goes through people's minds is, A, go in and help any way you can, and then B, the next immediate task is try to get things back to normal as soon as possible. So whether it's after a tornado or a hurricane, or like in this case after 9/11, the goal became, hey, we need to get things back to normal as soon as humanly possible. And so everyone just rolled up their sleeves and started getting to work. I mean, there were feelings of anxiety, uncertainty, their anger, right? A lot of anger because someone had done this to us, right? Terrorists had done this to us. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, everyone focused on the mission, and that mission was get New York City back to normal as soon as possible.
Well, everybody was really brave, and I'm really glad that things kind of have, gotten better for everybody. But
yeah. Me too, Timira. Yeah, me too.
So I know we only have like 30 minutes, and we're kind of running out of time, so I'm gonna try to hurry. But switching away from like the dark topics, this is sort of like with your relationships and how they've been with everything. So what has been difficult to communicate to your family and friends about your military experience, your Army experience?
So I think that's an insightful question. So it depends. Folks that are in the military, it's easy because they all understand more or less what I'm going through. But I found the greatest challenge is trying to explain to people who are not in the military. I have friends from high school that I just saw one the other day. My friend Tim Wendler from California came to visit me. I hadn't seen him in a long time. He is not in the military. He's never served a day in the military, but he's a close friend of mine. And so trying to explain to him what I do and in the military as a lifestyle, as a career, it took some time to explain that to him. So I found that one of my biggest challenges is, well, one, trying to translate, right? So there's a lot of, my wife always teases me that there's a lot of acronyms in the Army. We use acronyms for a lot of things, and trying to I have to remember that when I talk to someone, I can't tell them, I fired my M4 today, because a lot of people wouldn't know what that means. But if I said I fired my rifle today for practice, they would understand what that means. So part of the challenge is just trying to get the military jargon, trying to describe that to people, and so they understand what you're doing and what the military is like. A common example is in the Army we have this thing called ゚faq. And ゚faq can mean everything except the word no. That's a definition that's out there somewhere. So, if I want to say yes to someone, I say ゚faq. If I want to say I understand, I say ゚faq. It's one of these things. But my point is, we in the military we have a certain jargon, and we have to translate that jargon sometimes so that people understand what it is that we're trying to do. I think that's probably the biggest challenge, is trying to translate what we do into some type of context that people can understand. You know what I mean? So.
And how did you stay in touch with family and friends back home?
So when I was deployed, so this was back in 2004. Technology wasn't as readily accessible as it is today. So I remember we had a phone in our command post, and all the soldiers could use it. We all had to share, but I could pick up the phone and dial my home number and get connected and talk to my wife and my kids.
Oh, that's nice.
My family members. Yeah. So that was one way. The other way is we had a tent, and it was like an internet cafe. And as long as you could, as long as it wasn't being used, you could get behind a computer terminal, and I could actually talk to my wife or my kids on a webcam. So that type of technology is even more prevalent today. And now soldiers that are on duty have actually much more access to be able to stay in touch with families back at home. That's actually gotten much better over the years. It was a time in World War II when the only way you could communicate was through letters. And so we've advanced a lot since then. And you can pretty much stay in daily contact with your family when you're deployed. For the most part, you can stay in contact on a daily basis.
Okay. And during that technology time, that was like good enough for you?
Well, nothing ever replaces being with family, right? So right now, I have this job in D.C., but my wife and kids live in New York. So that's part of, in other words, to take this job, I wasn't expecting my wife and kids to move necessarily, because they have jobs, right? They have their own lives.
Yeah.
So staying in touch with family is a constant effort. It's not the best, we do our best to schedule weekends when we can see each other and be together. I wouldn't say this is just exclusive to the military. There's many people with demanding jobs out in America that aren't military related that have to put up with similar circumstances. I think at the end of the day, you really have to prioritize family. But just because you can't be with them all the time doesn't mean that they're not first, right? So how do you prioritize that? Well, you prioritize that by staying in touch. I text my kids every day. We try to get on phone calls as often as possible. And we, whenever we're together, it's just us, right? We prioritize that time for family. So I think that's where the trick is, right? You have to prioritize family and make sure the time counts when you're together.
Mm-hmm. And so what advice do you have for other military couples?
So military couples, so when you say that, Timira, are you talking about dual military, or just military families. Like, for example, my wife is not in the military, but she's a spouse of she's my spouse, right? So she's part of a military family, and then we have military spouses, right? That's where the two individuals are actually serving in the military. So I'm just trying to understand your question.
Yeah, I just mean like she's like military family couples.
Okay, yeah, yeah. My advice, I think, for military family couples is, well, it's the military can be a demanding lifestyle, and so whenever I'm at a promotion ceremony or at a ceremony where there's other family members, I always thank the families, because the families serve too. It's not just a soldier that serves, but the family serves too. And so I always thank the families, because they are as much a part of all of this as anyone else, because without the support of the families, the soldier can't serve. So that's important. I'd always stress that. That support is so important to continue to serve. You got to know that you have a family back at home who cares about you, who loves you, and is eager to see you. So that connection is predominantly a key component of being part of a military family. You got to have that connection and that support. But then I tell folks that are serving, like myself, you got to prioritize family. So when you do have time off, you can't be doing things without your family. If you really love your family, you got to prioritize them. You got to plan trips. You got to go on a hike together, go camping together, spend quality time together when you can, because those times are few and far between sometimes in the military. So you got to maximize that time and make it quality time, make it count. General Dempsey, he was the former Chief of Staff of the Army and then went on to become the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He's a mentor of mine, and he has a saying, make it matter. Make it matter. Make that time matter with your family and friends, and make it count, because those times are so few and far between, and you have to make them meaningful. I hope that answers your question.
It does. I agree with you. So
Thank you.
You're welcome. We just have 8 quick more questions. So I know you have 2 daughters, right?
I do.
And so what do you want them to know about your service? And also, would you want them to join the military as well if they were interested for the Army?
So, yeah, thanks, Timira. So I love them dearly, Rachel and Elizabeth. So Rachel's my oldest one. She just turned 29. And she is a doctor in physical therapy. She works in Saratoga Springs, New York, and she's married now. Got married last year.
Congratulations.
And then my youngest, I'm sorry?
Congratulations to her.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Timira. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And then my youngest, she's 26, and she's graduated college. She's actually working at her alma mater now, Union College. And she's going to go on to get her master's degree here in the fall in Rochester. So very proud of both of them. I'd actually encouraged them to look at a military career. Unfortunately, neither one of them wanted to pursue it, and that's okay. The military is a voluntary thing. We have an all-volunteer military for a reason in this country. By the way, this is the 50th anniversary this year of the all-volunteer military. You'll hear about that more this summer as you'll see ceremonies to commemorate the event. But it is the 50th anniversary of an all-volunteer military. So I did plant the seed. I presented opportunities to them, but they chose other paths, which is fine. But the one thing I do thank both of them for, and the one thing I would tell them is thank you for all the support they've given me. I know it's not been easy on them. There have been times when I've been unable to be at their birthday parties. I've been unable to be at events that were important to them. I've missed a lot of ceremonies, graduation ceremonies, other things that because I was deployed or doing something with the military that I've been able to participate in, and it's been tough, but I know they love me. I know they support me wholeheartedly, and I can't ask for anything more from them. I also know that they're supportive of the military. They both do their part to support service members whenever they can. So, I think especially my oldest daughter, she works in a hospital where she treats veterans, and so that makes me very proud to know that even though she's not in the military, she is serving military families and helping them, and that means all the world to me. So, hope that answers the question.
It does, and congratulations to both of them because they seem like they have a lot going on. And that's really good.
Thanks.
So, these three are kind of for people who are looking into your career path. So, I know you went to college. Which college did you go to, and what kind of education is kind of not maybe not required, but like you recommend, like the programs you recommend taking for people?
So, do you mean with respect to the military, Timira?
Yes.
Okay, so I went to the United States Military Academy, West Point, which is a service academy. The military has five service academies, really. So the Army has one. The Army, that's West Point, the United States Military Academy. The Air Force has the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. The Navy has the Naval Academy, which is located in Annapolis, Maryland. The Coast Guard has its own academy in Kings Point, New York. And then there's also the Merchant Marine Academy, which is also located in New York. So there's five service academies. These are great opportunities. Students in high school can apply for acceptance. The academies do require a nomination from a congressman. So you actually have to see a congressman and get a nomination from a congressman to compete for acceptance. If you are accepted at a service academy as a student, as a high school student, when you graduate high school, you go to the academy and it's fully paid for. It's 4 years, fully paid for by the government. And in return, there is a service commitment. It's usually 5 years after your graduation from an academy that you have to commit to your service, right? Whether that's Air Force, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, or Merchant Marine Academy. So it was good for me. I certainly got a lot out of it, and it's something like, again, if people want to join the military and they want to become an officer, a service academy is the best way to go about it. The other program I would recommend, if people don't want to go to an academy, they can go to a college or a university under what's called the ROTC program, the Reserve Officer Training Program. And so that's a little different. You can't apply for scholarships with ROTC. All services provide scholarships. Actually, when I say all services, Air Force, Navy, and Army do. And if you secure scholarship, you can get a full ride through college, and in many cases, room and board paid for through the program. And at the end, same thing. You owe a certain amount of time to the Army, Navy, and Marines. It's usually 4 years with an ROTC scholarship. But great programs for joining the military and becoming an officer. And then there's always just enlist, right? If folks don't want to go to college, they just want to go right into the military, they can enlist in the military. And then there's all sorts of programs within the military to get money for college, if that's something else they want to do later in life. So lots of opportunities there for college, whether you go to a service academy, to ROTC, or if you just decide to enlist. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say my brother actually just and he just joined, like the military, like a
Oh,
couple
that's
weeks
wonderful
ago.
news. Which service?
I don't really know. I just know that he's like already like training over there. Like he's not here anymore. But yeah.
Oh. Well, I wish him the best. I really do. I hope he enjoys his experience.
Thank you. So we're running out of time, and I have to wrap this up. So this is just a question I like to ask everybody when it's the last question. Um, so do you feel like your job has positively affected you, or the way you see life, or the way you've or has made you a better person? And I think you're an inspiration to me.
Oh, thanks, Timira. Thank you. Thanks. I appreciated that. Yeah. No, I, I, it has profoundly affected my life. I don't think I think I would have been successful in whatever I wanted to do, but the Army has just the military has opened up doors for me that I never thought possible. If you had asked me back in 1989 if I was going to be a 2-star general in the Army, I would have laughed. I would have laughed and told you, I'm going to do my 5 years, I'm out, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to go work in corporate America, I'm going to do something else. I never would have thought I would have stayed in as long as I did. So the Army has profoundly impacted my life. It has made me appreciate life more than I thought I ever would. I think a life of service in the military makes you appreciate all the moments in life that are precious, and that goes back to family, goes back to friendships. You really value those friendships, and you really value your family, and because that's what the Army is all about. It's about people, and you have to care about people, and throughout what the Army has taught me is caring about people is the number one thing, and seeing people rise to their fullest potential. I know it sounds kind of corny, but it's the Army motto, right? Be all you can be. But there's a lot of truth to that, and I think anyone who's served in the military for a long period of time, specifically in the Army, you just want to see every soldier I lead, every soldier I affect, I just want to see them be the best at whatever they decide to do, whatever that is. Even if it's not in the military, I just want to see them succeed and be all they can be. And I think that at the end of the day, that's the biggest lesson I've learned from the military.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And
thanks, Timira. And I want to tell you, you inspire me. You inspire me. That's I think what you're doing is awesome.
Thank you so much.
Especially your age. I'm very impressed. Thanks for what you do.
Of course. Thank you so much. And thank you for being a guest and everything. And I loved all your answers, but I've taken a lot of your time. So I'll end it right here. And thank you so much again.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me on your podcast. It really is. It's one of the funnest podcast interviews I've ever done.
Thank you.